Mark Twain said once that the inability to forget is infinitely more devastating than the inability to remember. The inability to forget is infinitely more devastating than the inability to remember. And I also read a quote by Dena once. I think Taurasi is another one of those just really confident and successful athletes, confident and successful people. And when Taurasi was a freshman at UConn, they made it to the national championship game. She was a starter. She was a very good player. And in that national championship game, she shot 1 for 15 from the field. She was 0 for 11 from the three-point line. And she fouled out with about 3 minutes to go, and they lost in the national championship game. And I can remember watching that game on TV, and after Taurasi fouled out, they put the camera on her, and she was at the end of the bench just devastated, just literally sobbing at the end of the bench. Well, here's what she said about that game about 6 months later when the next season started. She said, "I replayed the game in my mind that night, and I haven't thought about it since. Heck yeah, I was mad about it, but it happened. And then I moved on to the next challenge." So here's a player who in the biggest game of her life has probably the worst game of her life, and she thought about it that night, and she never thought about it again. She didn't spend the summer dwelling on how horrible she was in the national championship game and beating herself up for going 0 for 11 from the field and fouling out and them losing. I know if that had happened to me and to a lot of people, if they had the worst game of their life on the biggest stage of their life, man, I would have been beating myself up about that all summer. And I would have never forgotten that game. She thought about it that night. She allowed herself the luxury of forgetting past negative experiences. And then, by the way, she goes on and leads UConn to the next 3 national championships, becomes the first-round pick in the WNBA, plays on the U.S. Olympic team. Thought about it that night, never thought about it again.